Hi, I just wanted to record this on assisted dying. I have no idea who will watch this video, and I have no idea when they will watch it or listen to this video. I'm doing this on the 28th of November, which is the day before MPs in the UK are voting for this bill in the year 2024 in the second hearing. And if it goes forward, there's still like a long process. There's still a few years left before this could even be enacted. But the statistics show that 70% of the country is in favor of this assisted dying bill being passed. And, people, this is where we're at this point. To premise this video, I am not for this assisted dying bill being passed. And I will state a few of my reasons soon. I will back them up, but I can front load them now, just so you know. This bill does not end suffering. Suffering is one of the things that is guaranteed in this life. There is no life that will go without suffering. Second one, we do not determine the value of our lives. The value of our lives is intrinsic, and to put entrust the value of our lives to other people is never a good idea. I mean, of course, it's never a good idea, and I'll go into that later. 3, you will hear stories of people telling you individual stories of when assisted dying would have been a good thing to have had in place. But beware of such stories, because the story is about a community. Like this legislation will affect our society. It's not just one individual person. So beware of that. 4, people can tell you that this is a secular country, and the truth of the matter is that it is not secular in the way you think it is. And I'll also explain that soon. 5, there's a high risk of unintended consequences with this bill being passed. The NHS as it is already underfunded. It's already under strain, and trust in politicians is pretty much at one of the all-time lows. And to pass one of the legislations that has some of the largest impacts on society and our relationship with the state seems a very odd time to be doing something like this. And my 6th point is care in our society. Palliative care for end of dying, is severely underfunded. As in, the state is unlikely to already want to even take care of people in the current state we are in. And I think 2/3 of palliative care, money comes from donations and trusts. This does not come from the government. So that's already our starting position. So let me expand on all of these points. So one of the things about this bill is that they believe it's a very enlightened approach towards reducing suffering and ending suffering and cutting suffering at the end of life. The truth is, this is by no means the case. Suffering will still occur, and with this bill being passed, you will still be forced to undergo some level of suffering, because it's not a thing where you just say, I want to end my life, and you end it there and then. You have to get a doctor to consult a doctor, and then they have to make sure that you're in the right state of mind, etc. And it's a long process until it can actually be, your life can actually be ended. Suffering will still be part of the equation. In order for you to be in this state, you would already have to be considered, the person you could imagine is already considering themselves suffering. It says the doctor will have to know that you are likely to to die within 6 months. No doctor can actually tell you that for sure. There's no, they can guess, but they can never tell you for sure you have 6 months left. I, for one, know people in my family who have been told they have 5 months left to live and ended up living another 3-4 years after that. And so it goes to show that's not sort of a good baseline. Yeah, and also this would be through the means of a diagnosis. Suffering happens in all ways in this world, and we can't always control the way we will leave. It can be hugely tragic, where we do suffer, and there's people already suffering in this country through means, and such as, you know, in ways that they are suffering, but they feel they have no choice but to live. And this could be in seriously poor living conditions, or through disability that came in later life, but they feel a responsibility toward family, toward children, and they feel no choice but to live. This is sort of going into this whole of the morality of things. This is a real choice people make. But the idea is that if someone's suffering, we should do the very best they can to meet their responsibilities. They're doing the best they can to meet their responsibilities. If it does seem with this bill, you sort of approve the path of washing your hands of other people's suffering. Because in essence, you're saying, well, you don't have to suffer. You can always just end it here, which in a sense is also saying there isn't a life worth living. Life is not worth living if you're going to be undergoing suffering. And it changes the whole conversation around how we view suffering, around how we view what is and isn't okay in this life. There's already a question around, the pursuit of happiness and what social media tells us makes us happy, what we see with comparison on social media of other people's lives. And that is an algorithm, relies on an algorithm that feeds in of itself. And it can take you down dark paths. If you're already in a poor state of mind, your social media will only just reinforce that negative state of mind. If you're in a positive state of mind, your social media will enforce that positive state of mind. So it's actually creating more and more of a divide in our society than it's actually creating cohesion with this bill. There will be those who genuinely at this point think that if you don't decide to end your life because of suffering, they will then start to feel like those who continue with their life with suffering might assume, it's a war of affairs. Some people might feel offended by the fact that people are suffering and still choosing life, whereas other people who have suffered and chosen to end their life. What's that conversation going to be like between those two groups? Already in our society, as a default, if we are suffering, the good moral thing to do still is to support those who are suffering to the very, very end. Not to encourage them to give up, not to encourage them to just end their life there and then. That is what this bill is doing. And what does that say to you for your children? If they're in school, if someone hurts them, if they experience some suffering, are you just telling them, like, if you ever encounter suffering, this is a reason for you to give up on life, this is a reason for you to want to leave? Because this is now, it will become legislation. So it's not just something that you start learning about when you are given some news. And by the way, even though this bill only applies when you're 18 or over, kids from the age of 6, 7 already start learning about what happens when you turn 18 and 19. Just as many kids dream about getting their first tattoo when they become of age, Some kids might start to dream about the time that they can start going for assisted dying when they become of age. And what kind of conversations would we expect to have in our society? We can't, we can't say, well, that's not right, because it's legal. So there's already a sort of coercion for those who are supporting life even in suffering. And that's a really worrying thing to think, that those who want to support those who are in suffering will start to be looked down on, will start to be seen as the people who are not progressive, the people who are a hindrance to human advancement. And this is quite a worrying thought. The third point, also going back to the second one, the value of life. So a lot of the reasons why people choose to go for assisted dying is because they don't see, because this whole country already as it is very independent. It's built on self-reliance, built on unforgiveness. It's built on your chosen family, but there's no compromise to serve your community. Even though it is a very charitable country and people do like to know that they are helping someone somewhere, people very much choose who they want to help and choose who they stand by, and this is what this bill would be encouraging more of. And also, we already know that the statistics on sort of sickness and health and suffering and these things already target sort of marginalized communities are more impacted by these sorts of things. Now, this will then bring me on to my third story, is that a lot of the stories you hear that convince people that assisted dying is enlightened is because of individuals who are high-functioning members of society. I say high-functioning because they might have positions that are deemed to be of high esteem, either high-salary jobs or highly influential jobs, or highly active athletes. So, competitive people who have experienced success in whatever they compete in might find themselves in a period of suffering, and they've lost their identity in this time of suffering, and they no longer want to continue as they find it difficult to accept their new reality. And these are the sorts of stories you will hear. Not only that, but pain, physical pain, for endless amounts of pain, and the carers looking after these people who are experiencing this level of pain. So these will be the individual stories you see, where people just want to end their pain, bring an end to their suffering, bring an end to long, arduous battles that just people want to not be seen in or not undergo. And there's a few stories of people that they come in this way and they do change their mind after being shown a lot of level of support and affection and care and interest. People feel like they are a burden and they don't want to be. And, showing people that they're not a burden is on us. The way we act, the way we treat people. People try to make a whole thing around being kind, being thoughtful, being considerate. And is that really the case? Do you believe that there's a point to which you should stop being kind and sympathetic and nice? And I would say for the majority of us, there is. A lot of people are not willing to be kind unconditionally. I think people would be kind to a certain point and understanding to a certain point, and maybe in this country we have a higher threshold than other countries, but we still have a limit, and hence still there is a point through which a very dark side of a society could be experienced. And I think this should be a bill that calls us into a time of humility to sit and think, where does the limit for this country stand, and what darkness is for those people who have to walk past that point, or have to experience life in this country past the point where people are stop willing to be nice, stop willing to be understanding, and stop willing to be of support. And so it's a community issue as much as it is an individual issue. So while an individual person might say, I think assisted dying would have been the best way for me to end my life in dignity, the question is not just for them, but the fact is that the community will have to be involved in that decision. And what does that say about us? Well, it would put us in the position where we will say, well, if I assist them with their dying, well, that will make my process a lot easier, because I'll just get to see the good sides of them, and I won't have to see them when they're in a tough time and need me endlessly, and need me to be there when they can't do it themselves. So it is not just what the individual desires, because I don't think many people will tell us, because you're not willing to give your life for me, I will end my life. I think a lot of people would feel it's not their place to make such a request, but I think people will happily accept the request of saying, I don't think I'm willing to go on, and I would be happy for you to assist me by ending my life here. And people would be under the illusion that they're helping, but actually it's a bigger question. Could you have done more? Would you have done more? And I think a lot of people would struggle to say, yes, they would have been able to do more. Also, fourth point, people in this country like to take pride that this is a secular country. And let's just look up the definition of secular. And I'm doing this live. Say it has no connection with religion. And you've heard this said before, well, if you don't subscribe to any religion, that would probably make you an agnostic or an atheist. Which means that you still have a belief. And as much as we like to believe that we don't have beliefs, or we don't operate with faith, the truth is we do. It still feeds into the way we think. Whether you're an atheist or you're an agnostic, the way you view the world is based on a belief. And to be under the illusion or the pretense that this is a secular country where we respect people of different belief systems is quite simply not true. I have been in rooms where this bill has been debated, and even the mention of you believing there is a God, believing that you believe there is life after death, is met with rolled eyes, is met with groans, and you are looked down on if you are in a room where this bill is being debated and you say you believe there is a life after death. You will be looked down on, you will be cast aside, and you will be seen as a hindrance to the development and progression of the human race. And it sounds very heavy, but it's a point that needs to be brought to reflection when you're thinking about considering the passing of this bill, that it has already brought up this level of lack of compassion, not even when we're discussing these issues that require a lot of compassion, but just simply talking about faiths. This is the issue where I've seen the most divide, the most lack of understanding. So it's worth noting that a passing of this bill is only going to make this worse. People warned with Brexit that we might start to see an increase in racism again. And look what's happened. It's happened then. And now with this bill, it's a direct attack on those who believe that there is life after death. And it's only going to get worse. And this is what this bill is going to do. So if you want to be on that side, then I just want to make it clear that it's on your conscience. This is what this bill is doing as well. Okay, my fifth point. The NHS is already in a bad state. The NHS is understrained, has a lot of strain, and is underfunded. And also politicians are just not trusted by people at this time. The likelihood of unintended consequences from passing this bill are enormous. People go into hospitals because they believe that they will be looked after to have a better life, but that's quite simply not been the case in the NHS for some time. It's to provide basic needs, and I think there is an identity crisis in the NHS, and I believe that this bill is only going to make matters worse. The state of the healthcare system, how do you define morally the place of a doctor, is going to be seriously under question, because it will no longer be to protect and save human lives at all cost. It could now be to serve people, to make sure people have the quality of life people desire is being met. And it's under the illusion that it will be their individual fault if the quality of their life is not good, and the community can do nothing about it but just bid them farewell as and when they desire it after the age of 18. So it's actually not improving at all, building a stronger identity, a more admirable identity, a stronger community, a stronger knit community. It's actually creating more confusion in the healthcare identity, creating more confusion in the moral state of doctors and nurses, and it's creating less trust with politicians, what they're really caring for, and it's just a big scratch on the fabric that keeps the society glued together. Also, the very last point, speaking of poor funding, is the palliative care system is underfunded. 2/3 of it come from donations and trusts. It doesn't come from government funds. So as it stands, the government is not currently funding as best it can end-of-life care. It's not an area that they've been particularly keen on funding fully, and it's still very much private care, and it's expensive too for family members as well. So it just goes to show that what are we going to do? We're going to start seeing more and more people who, when it comes to this assisted dying, already at a time when we have families being broken, people unwilling to forgive, people who haven't seen relatives for years and decades. At this time is a time where they're going to be on their own and ask this question: do you want to continue to live? And their circumstances will have been shaped by the community they're around, more so than the actual condition of their state of suffering. So, and the people who've got less community or more broken families, we see a lot of countries that will be on, have a lot more economic, financial difficulties, financial stress, and this is a serious problem. Broken families where there's no way for you to have be able to reach someone, a relative, who will care for you just because you are a blood relative. We don't see that as much these days. So this is important. We can't check. I don't know if there's a way for us to check that everyone's got a healthy community that they're a part of. But people are becoming more and more isolated, and it doesn't seem like the right time to be offering a bill where you can offer assisted dying, which instead of the community rallying to support life, will be rallying to support death. And death is actually continues to feel unnatural. It continues to feel if you look deep down, death is not something that feels natural to want, that feels natural to look forward to. It's actually, unless you believe that there is life after death, if you want to end things, it's a sign that you are seriously troubled. And I think we all would like to go peacefully in our sleep, without any pain, without any suffering. And that's not the case for everyone. But think about this bill. Think about what it says about our community. And because this is a decision that's in the hands of the MPs, I don't know if it will reach any MPs, but even if it doesn't, there's still many other states that might pursue this after the UK does or doesn't. So this note will remain up and active. But this is a real communication surrounding the community, surrounding the sorts of conversations we will be having in our community. And make no mistake, people will still be wanting to help. Community will still be looking to assist those who are dying. This by no means inhibits those who want to support life, but it just means that those who could have had more time may not have as much time they could have had otherwise if this bill was to come to pass. One of the things that is seen as a very merciful thing to do is to give people more time. To give people more time to live, more time to conclude their affairs, to conclude their thoughts. Just giving people more time is seen as a very merciful thing to do. This bill is the complete opposite of that. This bill is encouraging people to end their time before it's naturally coming due. So if that doesn't tell you about where this issue could be sitting morally, it's an unmerciful bill, and it's only going to create further and further divide in our society, that perhaps some of us in this generation may not even witness to the full extent to which this decline in morality in our society will be felt. But if you don't pass this bill, you can extend the time, you can extend the length of mercy that the people in this country will experience. So that's what I think it comes down to for these MPs. Do you want to vote against and extend the level of mercy, or do you want to vote for and speeding up the rate at which unmerciful decisions get made in this country? I place that condition to you. Okay, thank you. I also want to add, think about times where people have extended mercy to you. Times when what you were being told, the process you had to go through a telephone operator where you weren't shown any understanding when you found yourself in a difficult situation, versus when you spoke to a human, someone who understood your position and was able to walk through it with you and able to come to a solution. What's the difference? It's massive. It's massive. You feel more human, you feel more alive when you have someone in the positions, especially in the difficult positions, to work with you and to find a solution to help you see the next day through. This bill is removing that for a lot of people, and it's removing that in the fabric of our society. Do you vote mercy, or do you not vote for mercy? That's my conclusion. Thank you.